Welcome to Love for Life, the podcast for modern couples who want to build relationships that last while raising families that thrive.
We're Nicole and Ben Farrow. Nicole's the expert and I am the other half of this partnership, bringing the everyday perspective of a guy doing the work alongside you.
Every week we cut through the BS and give you the real tools for real life, because your relationship isn't just personal, it's the foundation for everything. Let's get into it.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Love for Life podcast.
Hello. Apologies for sounding a bit off. We've all had a cold, haven't we? So we're slowly working through it. Got to love the fact that the kids can bring stuff like that from school. Lovely little gifts they give us. Between that and nits are probably the two worst ones that they do, isn't it?
Oh yes, but I've got a great tip for nits.
Okay, far away.
So you can buy these like knit repellent detangler sort of sprays. Basically, nits don't like citrus, and we use as a family and have done for a while Faith in Nature shampoo and conditioner.
This is not an ad, by the way.
This isn't, but if you want to sponsor us, Faith in Nature, feel free.
Buying it by the bucket load.
We do buy it by the bucket load, and we use the orange and grapefruit Faith in Nature shampoo and conditioner, and ever since we've been using that, neither of our kids have picked up nits, even though they've gone around the school, because they're always got citrus shampoos and conditioners on their heads. Therefore, because I don't think the knit stuff is very nice. Stinks. Smells nice. Wash their hair. Prevents nits. Perfect.
They're very good.
Top tip, Faith in Nature, orange and grapefruit, shampoo and conditioner. You'll never see a nit again.
There you go. You heard it here first and you get that one for free.
Yeah. And Faith in Nature, if you'd like to sponsor the podcast, please get in touch.
Please do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Save us a fortune, wouldn't it?
Yeah, just send us bottles of shampoo. It's great because it was a real problem. Yeah.
And the thing is, as soon as someone says, my kid's got nits, what's the first thing you do?
Scratch your head. It makes you itch.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to double check. And then that's it. It doesn't even matter if you haven't got them. You're just going to scratch your head to pieces and then be like, I'm going to have to just get nit treatment just to make sure.
Also, the school policy's crap regards nits as well, because I thought it'd be a case of if you had nits, then you get sent home to deal with the problem, but they don't.
Yeah.
That's not a reason. They have to still keep them in school. So they're just
Share
circulating. Yeah. Which makes no sense to me. Anyway.
Should we get on with the episode as opposed to making all of our listeners and our itch?
Yeah.
Which sounds terrible, doesn't it?
It does, rather, with no context, if someone just came into that. So this week's episode is a bit different because I don't know about you, but I'm picking up on a real divide at the moment between men and women. And there was a controversial episode of Diary of a CEO recently in which Stephen Bartlett was discussing with his guest men not procreating and their genes dropping out of the gene pool. And what was suggested on the podcast, I don't know if you saw this, what was suggested on the podcast was that we should do something as a society. We should intervene so that men can pass on their genes.
That's a weird statement to make.
Yeah, which is kind of suggesting the sort of unspoken half of that sentence or question is, should we force women to procreate with men if they don't want to, just so they can pass their genes on? And it's received loads of attention and criticism, quite rightly, online. And Stephen Bartlett's not having a great time with it, I don't think. Quite rightly, because it does kind of feed into a bit of Handmaid's Tale, let's be honest.
I've never seen it. I get that everyone makes that reference to the Handmaid's Tale, and I just smiled and went.
Smile away, boys, smile away. I haven't watched either because we started to watch an episode and I was pregnant with our first, and I was like really sensitive to stuff on TV and I couldn't watch it. Do you remember we went to watch it and then I was like, no, can't do this. The other one was Black Mirror.
Oh yeah, that was it. Black Mirror. That one, yeah. Was it the first? Because I think I'd seen like snippets of other episodes and I was like, this actually looks pretty deep. But then the very first one, and it was like,
horrific.
Wow. It's like, if this is what we're like rolling in with, this is the test in the water and seeing like how the population will take it. This is wild.
Yeah.
And then, you couldn't watch it. And then I just haven't had time. So
yeah, I think I was pregnant. I was either pregnant or I had a very, 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 very newborn.
I've got a feeling you was pregnant. But anyway, you're going on a tangent and leading me on a tangent right now.
Point being, Handmaid's Tale, the whole idea is that women are sort of brought in to just have babies and then the babies are taken from them. So they're just basically used for their bodies to harvest children. So
sort of like cows are.
Kind of, yeah.
They're forced to get pregnant to produce milk.
Yeah, I suppose. So yeah, very similar kind of thing set up. Anyway, quite rightly, Stephen Bartlett has come under a lot of scrutiny for even considering this
It's a
sort of
hard
line
line.
of question.
Yeah.
And I do feel like Stephen Bartlett's one of those people that nobody admits to liking him anyway. He's, for me, where Coldplay was in like 2010s. Nobody wanted to admit they liked Coldplay. Everybody hated Coldplay. But then Coldplay was selling out arenas and world tours and having a lot of success with their albums and the music, but nobody admitted liking them. Everyone had this thing about Coldplay at the time. And yet we were all buying their music and buying their concert tickets. And I think even Chris Martin had a bit of social anxiety over it, in the fact that people were so anti-Coldplay at the time. I think it's when he went a bit preachy. But anyway.
I think U2 were the preachy ones. They're the ones that put their album on everyone's phones without like anyone asking.
Well, at the time, I think it was a bit, Bono thinks he's God and Chris Martin thinks he's Jesus type thing. The pair of them were sort of on this very, I walk on water, shit rainbows type journey at the time. So I really want to share my favourite Bono story now.
Go on then.
Can I not share it? So they did a gig up in Glasgow and Bono commanded the entire audience to silence. And then he clicked his fingers and he said, "Every time I click my fingers, a child in Africa dies." And some very quick-witted Glaswegian at the front shouted, "Then stop doing it, you fucking evil bastard." And I remember reading it in Enemy magazine afterwards, and that was the thing that got the headlines, not the gig or how good the gig had been. It was just all about that one comment to Bono. So there was a time when no one wanted to admit that they liked Chris Martin or Coldplay, but they were still selling out. And I feel like Diary of a CEO still gets millions of downloads and has a huge subscriber and listenership, but nobody wants to admit that they like Stephen Bartlett. And this recent episode has only condemned him further. And I think he's actually on the verge of cancel culture now because of it.
I don't have a preference either way. I don't really know much about him. I've seen one or two of his episodes. I know he's one of the most listened to people. And he obviously has some really high profile people. And from what I've seen of him, he does ask good questions. But yeah, to say we need to basically let men procreate to keep their genes alive, like that's a hill you do not want to die on, and a real hard stance to take, and quite frankly, very medieval one in my eyes. If no one's procreating with a specific person, there's a good damn reason for it. Yeah, and it might not even be a case of they're wanting to, they may be choosing not to. So,
but the problem is it then leads into this whole conversation that we're having around the manosphere and those kind of conversations online and incels and the perception of women being the problem and the issue. And there's been, to be honest, similar kind of conversations on Diary of a CEO around fertility and the fact that fertility is dropping. And this is where the conversation is coming from as well. Is the fertility rates dropping? It's a big problem. Should we make women have babies? And that's a very, very, very dangerous line of questioning. And he has been heavily criticised for it. And it has had a huge backlash. But the fact that we're even having these conversations, the fact that we were speaking last year about adolescence and bringing the whole manosphere and incels and that side of what young men are being exposed to, there is this divide that's being created between men and women, boys and girls. And it's not just online and to do with fertility, but it's also girls are outperforming boys in schools.
I think girls have always been better than boys in school. Biologically, women memory retention's better. You look at finer details, whereas for men it's like a quick solve to a immediate problem. Your memory retention isn't as good, obviously, because your body's chemical balance and reactivity is all completely different to the female. Do you think that there's a portion of it that's biological?
Well, they've now proven that boys' brains develop differently to girls, and it's been trialled in America with red shirting, that girls starting a year earlier and boys being held back a year in starting school actually benefits them long term in terms of taking exams later on, because they just develop very differently. We've witnessed that. The difference between our son and our daughter, I'd say, is like night and day in terms of the way that they learn, in terms of the pace in which they learn, in terms of their independence. I'd say that our son has needed a lot more hand holding in early years than what our daughter has. He's just kind of got up and taken on the world and just is fiercely independent. And her eagerness to like write. She will sit and colour and do puzzles and do those kind of things. And my absolute frustration with our son was that I would get out all the painting stuff or all the craft stuff because that's what he wanted to do. The moment I got it out, it would literally entertain him for less than 5 minutes, and then I'd spend more time getting it out and packing it away because he had no interest in it, and trying to keep his attention on those kind of things was really hard. Whereas she happily sits there and will sit and do things that are quite intricate and sit with it for a while. And now it's quite nice because of the age gap. They can sit and do things together. Because he's 3 years older than her, he will now sit and do things. But at her age, he had no interest whatsoever. And they are different, but I don't think that's just their personalities. I think that is boys and girls, and the fact that they develop differently and they have different interests, and boys need to run around and let that energy out, and actually making them sit at a desk from the age of 5 and try and making them write, and even them fine motor skills and things like that. They've now said that they're not the same. Their brains develop differently and at different paces, and they get there in the end. But ultimately the education system, which was actually predominantly set up for boys initially, is actually failing boys because it's not the right way in which they learn.
But the old education system was a lot more Victorian. It was punishment and lines and more physical than what the modern education system is. So again, there's a difference there. As for our children and the difference between girl versus boy, I think it's also, you've got to look at first child, second child, because she has a role model that's not too much bigger than her, and she wants to keep up with him to play because she knows that he is into imagination play and is into like areas that she wants to do, and she sees him and wants to keep up. So she has a massive role model, as much as obviously us, in her bigger brother. Now, she adores him, and her learning to walk, she wants to be able to run around with him. If he jumps off the sofa, she wants to jump off the sofa. If they're climbing up onto a tree, he stands on the ground and watches, and she does it.
Exactly. And also,
he's not about heights, is that?
But also, I know what you're saying, and I agree. But equally, when it comes to like sitting down and doing those kind of more creative or academic, those kind of like sitting quietly at a table doing something, that's not something that he was role modeling for her, because he wasn't doing that. It's something that she's shown interest in. Now he sits at the table and does it with her, even though he's 3 years older. That's what I'm saying, like that, which is what you get at school. It's not the running around, it's not the climbing trees, because actually you're not really encouraged to do that now. And that's, I think, the problem. And actually what you're saying about the Victorian times, yes, the punishment isn't there, but in terms of what they're learning and how they're learning, i.e. sitting at a desk for however many hours and being dictated to, that hasn't changed since the Victorian times. And that's the problem. It doesn't work for boys. And so girls are now outperforming boys across every subject as well, not just particular subjects, but every subject. They are massively outperforming boys, but then they get into the workplace and there's still more men in leadership than women, so that it's still unfair on women. And there does seem to be getting more and more polarized on our divide between men and women, boys and girls, through the education system, but then as adults as well. And when you're having conversations about whether we should be intervening about procreating, or you're seeing the likes of the issues that they've had over in the States with abortions, and you're having those kind of conversations here, whether that would be brought in under certain governments, it's a worrying kind of tipping point in terms of the conversations that we're having around treating boys and girls differently. And
I mean, as soon as you say to someone, well, yeah, you should have the right to go and procreate and spread your genes or your seed, if someone hears that, like, they're going to see that as a green light for carte blanche of, I can do what I want. And it's just dangerous.
Well, this is the other problem. We are living in a time where, on top of that, the news is the Epstein files. There's this huge backdrop to people in power can do what they want, and there is no agency over young girls, and violence against women and girls is at an all-time high. England and Wales police and watchdogs now describe it as a national emergency, and estimate 2 million women a year experience male violence, which is making up about 20% of overall crime. So the world we're living in does seem quite scary and does seem quite vulnerable for women.
Yeah, it's interesting. Lately, I've seen quite a few of those like social experiments online where I think one of them was there's a little girl sat on a bench, and then there was one of the actors, and she was an actor, and then there was a bloke actor next to her, and he was going like, I know your mummy and daddy, do you want to come and get some ice cream? And we'll shoot down the road and we'll get some ice cream. And then it was like a random person sat the other side, and it was amazing to see people's reactions. And obviously a lot of the time it was men that sat down there, not women, because they was waiting for, I'm guessing, their partners to come out of the shopping centre or whatever. So they were hiding. And
no stereotypes here, Ben.
Yeah, but yeah, and every single person stepped in. And then there was one of a man and a woman going out for a date, and then he's like shouting at her and pushes her against the wall. And again, every single time someone stepped in. Most of the time it was young blokes. Women didn't, like on the man having a go at a woman, women didn't really get involved. They walked past. And on the kid one, it wasn't really women that were around. I think there was one woman on it, but mostly it was men again, which is really good to see. However, when you're saying there about the violence thing, they did the domestic violence one the other way around, where the woman was like smacking the guy and pushing him around, and people completely ignored it. And this is on a busy high street. They had two people walk past, laugh, and encourage her and take videos, like get their phones out and video it laughing. So it's, as a society, there's a lot of work to do, and to call it out and stop it if you see it, but also it has to work the opposite way as well. And you see it online with creepy comments all the time. The amount of guys that will comment on random videos and you're like, oh, that's creepy. But then, for instance, anyone that doesn't know him on TikTok, Foreign Bradley, he's a lumberjack from America. The dude is a specimen of a human being, I have to say. I would love to have the physique that he has.
I wonder what you can say there. Getting a bit worried.
It's like deadly in shape. Obviously, he's a lumberjack. Oh, and he's got a really...
is this guy who chops wood?
Yes, it's the guy who chops wood. I have shown you. Yeah. But yeah, he's like a heartthrob. Is it a female heartthrob? No, heartthrob? I don't know what one you call it. But anyway, so many women pine after him. No pun intended. And the comments are diabolical.
But presumably he's putting that content up for that reason. It's not teaching you to chop wood with those angles and the music and the shirt off.
There's not angles. There's not shirt off.
Which shirt off?
Like
I've seen a shirt off. That's why I remember it.
See? And some of the comments are so unhinged. And if this was the other way around, it would not be acceptable. So it's a hard one to say, because everyone likes a compliment. As humans, we like a compliment, right? And if I was to have someone making comments that are a bit lewd on a video that I'd done, I'd be like, water for duck's back. It's no consequence to me. But if I was to see a comment on a woman's video that was like, I bet she looks like better with her kit on the floor or whatever, I'd be like, that's a bit rank. So it's like, it's a tough one, because I can sit here and preach all I like, but is where do you draw the line? And I think this is where the whole, men should be allowed to just procreate. You can't say that, because if you've got people making comments on a video of someone that they've never met and they're already coming out with this shit, to then give them license to go, well, I should be allowed to do this. And this is what I did when I wasn't allowed to just do it. So now someone's given me a fucking green light, I'm just going all out. I know it's a bit of a tangent again, but I think it's a dangerous statement to make.
It is really dangerous, and it is dividing. As I said, it's encouraging the wrong thing, and it's definitely dividing people. And just on your comment, domestic violence goes both ways, and it needs to be squashed in both directions. 1.6 million women experience domestic violence each year. That's the latest.
Yeah, it's a tough one, because for men,
a lot of it goes on to report it, but I still don't think it's as high as what it is for women.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it to be. There's a Netflix documentary about a guy who was like domestically abused, and he didn't want to say anything because he didn't want the shame of it. And that's a lot of it. Is shame, and it is worry, and so we could go down a massive rabbit hole with it.
It's not okay in either such circumstances
Never.
at the end of the day. It really isn't. But there is this anger, women feeling anger and rage towards not having autonomy over and agency over their bodies, about the conversations being having, as said, about abortions, the conversations that are being had about whether men have a right to their bodies. You know, you're seeing the Paris Paloma's song Labour went absolutely viral as like a feminist anthem.
Right.
It's an absolutely amazing song and it's hard hitting. You will have heard it.
Well, maybe I just need to hear it.
Well, it's become kind of this real anthem for the anger and the rage that women are feeling. And when you've got the backdrop of Epstein and the whole patriarchy and leadership and people at that level are untouchable and can do what they like, it doesn't matter how well you do at school, you still can't get into those leadership positions at work. Women are voting for their feet. You know, there is a decline in marriages, there is a decline in the fertility rates.
But that's not them voting with their feet. That's environmental, really, isn't it?
But what I'm saying is they're choosing not to. They're making a choice not to procreate. They're making a choice not to get married. It's not such a attractive proposition, getting married and having babies for women nowadays, in the way that, and it's not. There are more options to go to, you know, to have a career. And then you've got to think, for the ones that are married, 69% of divorces are now instigated by women. Women are then choosing to exit that situation, because we've talked on here about the mental load and the social expectations of women being able to be the caregivers and hold it all together and keep it all going, and they're expected to have a career. And it's becoming too much. And so women are opting out and going, well, I'd rather not have that. I'll just have to focus on myself and have my career and have them, because that's how we measure success in a patriarchal society, is of what you could earn, as opposed to seeing the value of caregiving and community under a matriarch, what that might look like.
Yeah. I mean, I do understand that. Yeah. You was on a roll, sweetheart. I didn't want to step on your toes.
Sorry, I'm getting on my soapbox.
Fuck me, you're on a towel.
Oh, I think it's important. At the end of the day, we're raising a boy and a girl.
Yeah. 100%.
And I don't want anyone to have any right over her body, or
Never.
him to think that he's got a right over anybody else's body.
And we're already instilling that in them now. With simple little things. So yeah, they know what is and isn't acceptable, and
It means no.
no means no. They can always, and we've incorporated it into their like play. Haven't we? So
Yeah.
it's, as soon as someone says no, it stops. That's it. Which is hilarious when it's like you tickle them and then they go no, and you're like, okay, I'll stop, and then 2 minutes later they're like jump on your back and you're like no, get off, and they are holding on for dear life and they won't get off, and you're like, well, this is some bullshit.
Oh no,
You
sometimes
can't-
I think it's like no, like chase me. But they
that's the
they
thing.
have to learn that no means no. So if you say
Exactly.
no, stop,
Yeah.
play stops.
And that's where they'll then learn that there's a time and a place, and also that if they do it, they need to know that there'll be equal and opposite reaction. If you say no and someone carries on, then best believe there'll be a big issue. It's good to instill it in them when they're young, that as soon as they say no, then that's fine. And it's not a problem to say no. It just stops whatever you don't like. But you can say it whenever you want, should I say.
And this is the thing, because this is the world that they're inheriting, and it does feel like we are on like the precipice of a potential collapse. The world's kind of eating itself and setting itself on fire at the minute.
Yeah, mostly down to a literal handful of people.
Is it a handful of people though? I mean,
Yeah, what's it like? 6 million pages or something. A lot of the wealthiest people in the world.
but it does feel like there's a tipping point. It feels there is sort of unrest happening and that it's bubbling up. The problem is, I think it's bubbling up in ways that are actually putting men against women and women against men. Actually, we would do better if we can work together, but we're almost bubbling up against one another. That's
Classic misdirection.
Yeah, it's not going to help. It's not going to.
No, but they're never going to. This is what they do. It's a case of we'll give you a crumb so that you can stop complaining about being hungry. The same with everything that goes on in the world. This is something serious. It's not good. And then all of a sudden, massive problem over here. Oh, right. Okay. So it's all misdirection.
Yeah, but this whole kind of like almost weaponizing of it. So there's this sort of toxic masculinity now, and then you've got men who are going, well, I don't think I'm toxic, but actually just being a man makes me toxic. And then you've got this toxic femininity as well that's so angry and hateful towards men, and actually that's not helping. The two are just colliding, and actually everybody's missing out.
Yeah. I think it's hard. Personally, I'll say, as a man, it is very difficult to feel like you can say something now, because as soon as you get onto a subject that someone feels that they're have more of an authority than you have to shut up, because if not, you are being oppressive or being misogynistic or patriarchal, and it can be a number of things, and you're going to get labelled some sort of bigot because how dare you have a say on this?
Do you think everyone's easily offended now?
Yeah, I do think a hell of a lot of people are easily offended. But not only that, it's other people being easily offended is one thing, but it's almost like as a bloke, I feel like I've almost been stripped of my voice. I shouldn't be allowed to say certain things on certain topics because it's not my right, if that makes sense. So for me, like, because
is this conversation difficult for you to have because of the fact that you're a man?
That's a really good question. I feel guilty as a man sat here with, not for the fact of being husband and wife, but being male, female. I feel guilty that another man has said such a fucking stupid, regressive thing because he's part of the same fucking gender as me. And that's a worrying thing to feel. Because you shouldn't feel sorry because someone's stupid or says something stupid. But it's mad that you shouldn't feel that way, but you feel it because of their makeup, not the person. Because I don't think I've got anything in common with Stephen.
No associations with Stephen Bartlett.
Association. Yeah, nothing like that. Apart from the fact that we share a gender. And I feel guilty because of that reason, which is just wild to do. And as well, like, because I know the history and I know that it is mostly men, and I know that it is as like perpetrators of sexual violence and all that sort of stuff. I know it is. I know that there is some of the opposite, but the bulk of it is straight men. So I feel a responsibility to, one, call it out. Because like I said earlier, it's that thing of people walking past and not saying anything, people getting on the elevator and not pressing the button. I can't do that. And I think you've hated me for that in the past, where I've had to say something to someone and you're like, just don't. And I've had it with other people in the past as well, and they're like, just leave it alone. And I just can't, because if everyone does that, nothing changes. It's not like a case of you got to be white knighting, but certainly a case of, I don't like bullies, so that's the biggest ones for me. But yeah, also it's that sort of chivalry of you never hit a woman. So if I see someone bullying a woman, I remember it in school. There was a lad, I can't remember his name now, which is bad, but it was one of my friends, and he like squared up to her, and he was massively taller than me and taller than her as well, but he squared up to her, and I was like, it was like dragged to a ball, and I think he was about 1.5 foot taller than me, and I'm shoved him back and got in his face. I weren't happy about it because I was like, you don't do that. Very, very much part of my core values. It's really weird. I'm sat here and I feel agitated and antsy and angry, and why the fuck would you say that? So yeah, for me as a man, it seems very regressive and stupid and like completely backwards.
Yeah,
Sorry.
It's really interesting. I'd like to just clarify that the times when I've told you to not say something, because I agree with you. Bystanders and people who walk past are no better than the perpetrator, and I'm 100% behind you on that. But there are certain times when you have said something or got involved in it, is that there is that risk to yourself or your family by stepping in, and that's where I think you have to assess the situation first, which is where I would err caution. But I think that's also the difference between men and women, of we are more vulnerable and therefore we have to assess the situation before stepping in, whereas you tend to go in like a bull in a china shop because there's less fear. That is part of the gender difference in terms of the way we've raised, and also what we've had to contend with through ourselves, but also through our lineage as well.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said there, I'm 100%. The times where you've said to wind it back has been when the kids have been with us. And again, like you said, there isn't that fear. There's always fear. Like there's always, like, I can say something to someone and expect to get absolutely decked. But I think the funniest one I've heard was, I might not be first, but I'll be the closest damn second you've ever seen. So that's the way my brain goes. I might not win this one, but I will definitely make you think twice next time. So yeah, but I just, for everyone who's listening, it is when the kids are around that you're like, just leave it, take a breath. If there was ever anything, and that's not for like a man hitting a woman in the street or anything like that. That's for like someone driving like an arsehole and me being like, I've got kids in the fucking car. I think there was one guy went there who he had his family in the car. I was driving our car. And he was being an arsehole. Did he try to undercut us or something?
Can't remember. I think he's trying to cut us up or something.
Yeah, that's it. And then he was flashing his headlights and stuff like that. And then, like, we were coming off anyway, and he was right up my arse. And he's come down the slip road, pulled up beside us, and like wound the window down and was having a go. And I was giving him both barrels back, and he was like, "Stop! You've got me and the kids in the car. Enough."
Just coming back to it, though, obviously you feel the weight of the responsibility you were saying because of the fact that it's men that are the perpetrators that are suggesting that they have some right to women's bodies. Do you think that you feel that as well because of having children and particularly having a daughter, that it hits more of a nerve for you?
Yeah, having a daughter, I feel very much in sort of like protective bear mode, and I certainly look at things more now, and I'm like, not acceptable.
As has been every dad since the beginning of time.
Yeah,
dads and their daughters.
It's a funny one. So obviously with the fire training, there was a group of 9 of us, and there was only one female in that group. But it was really nice to see how everyone looked out for her, and everyone kept checking in on her. Everyone made sure she was all right. As a dad to a girl, I was wanted to check in, you know, and it was lovely when we finished the course, and one of the other lads who's the same age as me, and I turned around, and he was like, "See you later," and she gave him a big cuddle, and she's like, "See you later, Dad," and then he just like picked her up like a bear hug, and was like shaking her from side to side, and he was like, "I'll see you again soon." It's like, it's so nice. I know that he's got a couple of daughters who he's the same way. Like, we're a bit more protective.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because some women will probably be listening to this being like, but she shouldn't be treated differently because she's a girl. That's part of the problem, is you treat us differently. There will be some women who will take that as offense. That's really, it would take offence to that. Obviously she didn't, and obviously it's coming from a good place, but there are some women who would be like, that's part of the problem. Yeah,
see, it wasn't, okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, from that point of view, she was treated no different to any of us.
And she won the
award for the most consistent on the course. And everyone went, it's definitely going to be you, because she was bang on it, and we all mucked in. But when we were running drills, everyone did it, and she did it exactly the same as we would have to. We all cheered each other on. She didn't get special treatment, I think, and everyone that I've spoken to is like, fair play to her. She smashed it out of the park.
Interestingly, you're saying like you feel more responsibility for the fact that you have a girl. I feel a lot of responsibility for having a son and raising him to be respectful of women, and knowing that the first relationship that he has with a woman is the one that he has with me, and knowing the importance of that and how we raise him to be respectful of me, to be respectful of his sister, to be respectful of other women, and the responsibility of trying to raise a boy today. It feels quite a daunting task in itself as well. And there is this overprotectiveness that's been through decades for good reason, for the stats that we've, spoken about. This isn't something new. This has always been an issue, but as I said, it just feels like we're on a precipice of something, some sort of collapse. And the pressure to raise boys, given the fact that suicide is still the biggest killer for men, knowing that there is this manosphere out there, that there are stupid podcast hosts who are coming up with ridiculous ideas that maybe go against what we're trying to teach him in terms of values. Knowing that boys are falling behind in school and education, it feels like there is so much to worry about with her, but also for him as well in the world that he's growing up in and inheriting, and because we have to tackle this, that we do it together. And actually it is a problem for everyone. It has a knock-on impact on everyone, not just girls but also boys, and pitting the sexes against one another isn't what's going to lead us to greatness in the end. So actually there's a lot that needs to be done, but it's something that's got to be done together, and we need more men to speak up and to lead the way and role model healthy relationships and respect for women. We need women to be given those opportunities. We need to acknowledge the fact that there is a difference in the way that boys and girls brains develop, and that we need to change the education system to support both sexes, not just stick with what's been done before. We have so much more opportunity, so much more access to information and science and research, that we now need to do something with what we know and try and bring people together, as opposed to letting it be really polarized to the point where you've almost got two camps.
Yeah. I mean, we don't do boys v girls at home. We don't do the pink versus blue. We don't do any of that, because ultimately they're both little people that we love equally.
But equally, just thinking about what you just said there, no, we don't. But also, I don't agree with making out that boys and girls are exactly the same either. They're not. We have to acknowledge the fact that they are different, and that there are some advantages to girls and boys, and that you need to play to those strengths, not pit them up against one another or try and make them the same, or as I said, or make them completely different, that they're not even communicating. Because at the end of the day, there are so many differences. And when you come to relationships, whether that's with parents or siblings or partners or work colleagues, if you can't get on with the opposite sex and you have a communication barrier, that's a big issue. If you're going in with preset ideas that are kind of anti the other, then that's a big issue for us as a society going forward. Having these kind of conversations, I think, is really important, and having a balanced view of both sides is really important. Inviting men to the table to have the conversation and not feeling like they don't have a perspective or an opportunity to learn, and vice versa. Like, I don't think it's patriarch versus the matriarch. I think we need something new, something different that actually balances both. And part of that is looking at the education system, looking at the workplace, looking at providing the right sort of support for families, couples to have children, or, you know, to have that sort of support, and to find the balance, I think, in the labour, both at work and at home. So
bit deep, this one, wasn't it? Again, we've had a few good deep ones lately.
Well, I just think that at the minute there's so much going on globally, politically, socially, that we can't just talk about checking in with each other and that's going to make it all okay. There's so much pressure at the moment, and there's so much fear out there at the moment. We have to have these big conversations and bring, if we can have these conversations as a couple, as parents, as partners, as friends, as podcast hosts, hopefully other people can too. Yeah,
definitely. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode. It's certainly been an eye-opener for me, and made me think about things that I hadn't necessarily thought about in specific ways before. So yeah, really enjoyed this one, and we hope you did too. And we will see you all again next week.